Hi folks, Tino here with the Countdown to Kick-Off show as Celtic get set for match day 1 of this season's Champions League where we face Slovan Bratislava, 8pm kick-off Wednesday night at Celtic Park. Joined by James for this one. James, your initial thoughts ahead of the game?
Yeah, excited. I'm excited but nervous at the same time. I've watched a wee bit of Bratislava's last few games and stuff, and like any game, it's not a gimme at this level. We did a fairly tough qualifying route. They got there. They're fast on the break. It'll be tough, but I think we're as strong as we've been in quite a while, and we've made significant upgrades to the squad, and the depth is better. So yeah, feeling positive.
Yeah, I think we're in a very good shape, possibly as good as a shape we could hope to be in. Everyone knows we're 6 wins from 6 domestic games this season, 5 of which are in the league. We've yet to concede a goal in the league. 17 goals scored in total in those 6 games, only 1 conceded. It's impressive form. We've added Arnie Engels, we've added Luke McCowan, we've got Paulo Bernardo, seemingly in good form, Kasper Schmeichel, safe pair of hands and a good pair of feet at the back. So we're in good shape all around, but Bratislava themselves will be feeling pretty good about themselves. Most folk will have seen a few weeks back, they lost a game, quite a bizarre result. They lost 5-0, but out with that, they've won 5 of their 6 league games this season. They've actually won the title in Slovakia the last 6 years running, and they're now back at the top of the table, and they'll be feeling fairly buoyant in general. Their route to get here, so I think you mentioned you've watched bits and bobs. They beat Celje from Slovenia in their first qualifier. They then beat Apoel from Cyprus, and then the final stage to get here, they beat Midtjylland, who we know well. They knocked us out in Ange's first season. They beat them 4-3 in aggregate to get to this stage. So yeah, we'll get to them in a wee bit more detail in terms of some bits and bobs. But from a Celtic point of view, James, you got to be feeling good about yourself. And as Miff said, I think him and Paddy covered it after the game on Saturday. If Celtic have got genuine aspirations of going further, this is a must-win, put it simply.
Yeah, and there's also a hoodoo to break there, having not won 12 opening Champions League group fixtures. So got to knock that out for a start. But even taking history out of the way, just looking at this new format and the draw we've got, it doesn't mean anything if you're starting off from a negative position, i.e., even a draw tomorrow night. That's got to be a win on the board, and then you go and do a couple of away games, try and sneak something there, and then you're coming back to home and you're looking to build on those points. But this is your kind of grounding, your foundation for doing something, getting out of this phase and getting into the playoffs. So has to be. But like I said in the weekly show, Rodgers is just so deliberate as a manager, so well prepared that he'll be going into this with the team knowing exactly where they need to be. He'll have picked the exact team that he knows gives us the best chance of getting a result here, and he'll know all about them as well. So that gives me a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I agree. I think Brendan Rodgers has stressed several times of recent that he won't allow complacency in any way, shape or form. If Celtic don't get the result for whatever reason on Wednesday night, it won't be for lack of prep. It won't be for, there's people saying that fans need to, don't underestimate Slovan. Fans might or might not underestimate them. Brendan Rodgers and his players won't. Absolutely won't. They'll have done all their prep. They'll know who to look out for, who the danger men are, all these things, how they set up, and they will be as professional as they need to be on the night. That's just the way it is under Brendan Rodgers. We know that we've been given what I would describe as a favourable draw. The 8 games, there's some toughies in there. Dortmund away is the next one. We've got Atalanta, Europa League holders. We've got Leipzig on match day 4, I think it is. But that aside, there's some very winnable ties. This one would fall into the winnable category for me. But if you think we've got it easy, I think Bratislava have got it potentially as tough as anybody. I'll read out their fixtures in order. They play us away from home, obviously, tomorrow night, Wednesday night. They're then at home to Man City, away to Girona, home to Dynamo Zagreb, home to AC Milan, away to Atletico Madrid, home to Stuttgart, away to Bayern Munich. Now, we talk about Celtic seeing this as a must-win. They might be looking at those fixtures and say there's a few games we can forget about. We've got no chance in. And this might be one of the few games, maybe 3 or 4 games that they say these are the only feasible games where we may steal a point. And from that point of view, it might change how they approach things, and they might say, we need to go for it here because we know that there's some real struggles in the rest of the games. This might be our opportunity. And you might see them have a go at some point, maybe not from the start. They might not go gung-ho, but at some point, the longer it stays nothing each and all that, they might see something in it for them.
Undoubtedly they will. I don't know if it really changes their approach to any, like say, any kind of gung-ho setup. Very, very experienced manager. He's been manager since about the 90s or something. He's been Slovak national manager. He's been around the block. We were talking earlier before we came on. There's questions as to whether he'll travel. He's not been well. He's had some kind of flu virus or something like that. But he'll still be pulling strings even if he isn't there. I think they will be quite cautious. I think they'll be set up to kind of almost like a kind of Scottish game, a low block. They're very, very fast on the break, and they've got a couple of players that can really hurt you. A goal in particular, the Robbo Mack scored against April. Did you see that one?
No, but I know Robert Mack.
Yeah, really, smart feet, really well taken, well outside the box, and that is, the kind of damage they can inflict on you on the break. So I think that's how they'll approach it. I think they'll be quite cautious, but they'll be looking to break at every given opportunity. So we've just got to make sure we keep the back door shut when we're on attack. But we're used to that as well. We should be used to that. So yeah, gives me confidence.
Just in terms of some of the personnel, so you've mentioned the manager. The manager is Vladimir Weiss Senior. We might be more familiar, or some will be more familiar with his son, Vladimir Weiss Junior, who seems like a right nice guy to be around. He spent a season on loan at Rangers in 2010, 2011. He's had a number of clubs since then. This is a football show and all that stuff, but if you jump on his Wikipedia, it lists all these clubs and various things, and then there's, on Wikipedia, as you sometimes get with certain figures, controversy as a headline in itself. Right. And there's about half a dozen incidents and various things that he's got up to over the years. He wasn't a particularly nice character when he was here in Glasgow, and I think he might get a pretty warm reception. But he's part of that setup. Him and his dad, I think, have gone hand in hand at a few clubs. Dad manager, son comes in, and I think he's the captain as well. Strange stuff going on there, to be honest with you. But he's a decent enough player. Yeah. He has been a decent enough player. He came through the ranks at Man City, but like a lot of guys didn't, make it in terms of the first team there. But he's got 77 caps for his country, so you can't dismiss that. But he is now 34 years of age. And actually, that's a bit of a theme with the side. They've got some aging players. Just at a glance, their centre-back, a guy called Guram Kushia. He's 37, and he plays every game. So he's in the centre defence, a Georgian defender. They've got a left-back called Kevin Wimmer, who at one point was at Spurs. He's 31 years of age. Robert Mack, that you mentioned, he's 33. He seems to come off the bench, as does Juraj Kuka, I think it is, who's 37. Bottom line is, and I was looking just at the lineup from Saturday alone, 4 of their starting 11 on Saturday are in their 30s, and 2 of the 3 subs that came on were 33 and 37. Now, you can't read too much into that. I don't know a huge deal about their ability. I've not watched them as players, but at some point you'd need to think that Celtic's youthful lineup, we've got a fairly, young team in general. You'd like to think, the pace up top, Daisen Maeda's pace, Nicholas Kuhn's pace, Kyogo's, movement and trickery up top. I'd like to suggest that will cause them problems at some point.
Yeah, I mean, pace is definitely a hallmark of the Celtic side, but so is the ability to turn the defence into attack in seconds, 2-3 seconds. And that's guys like Alistair Johnson, Engels will be involved in that, Kalmack obviously taking the ball out of defence. And that's where you can catch out some maybe older legs. Older legs means older heads as well, so there's experience in there. But yeah, we've got that dynamism. If they are on a break and they start to commit, then we've got that ability to really punish them and turn it over and catch them cold. So I'm hoping we see that. There's a lot of good in the experience, but I think the pace is something that at this level, can really hurt you.
I think so, and I think it's something that all of a sudden this Celtic side have got a fair deal of within the ranks. Just to kind of finish on Vladimir Weiss Senior, he masterminded the 5-4 aggregate win by Armida Bratislava over Gordon Strachan's Celtic way back in 2005-2006 season. That was Strachan's very first game in charge of Celtic, a 5-0 loss. We then got a 4-0 win at Celtic Park, but it wasn't enough. So we're waiting 20 years, Jim, to serve revenge on that man.
So what you're telling me is last time he came to Celtic Park, he got beat 4-0?
I like it. The form guide doesn't lie. So there's various ways to look at various things. Let's look at Celtic. We've covered Bratislava and what they may or may not bring to the party. Celtic, though, as we know, are cooking the gas at this moment in time. Very good form, real confidence about the place. We're breaking records that have lasted 100 and odd years there in terms of the clean sheet stuff at the weekend. And there's a real confidence about this side. We've spoken about the new guys that come in and when they'll get their chance. Engels obviously has got his chance, Luke McCowan to an extent. The two lads at the back, Austin Trusty and Alex Bailly, looks like they may need to kick their heels for a bit longer. But let's run through what you think Brendan Rodgers will go with. I think at the moment, you and Paddy, the three of us covered it on the weekly show, that Celtic's back five, which is the goalie plus the four in front, are solid at this moment in time. And I don't know if it makes any sense to change them, regardless what Austin Trusty might bring to the party, regardless what Alex Bailly might bring to the party. Just now, that's a really decent five, isn't it?
I think so. I'd be really, really surprised if there's any change on that. Managers typically don't change a stingy defence when it's on such form. It would only really be something like Rodgers has noticed someone, particularly in the right wing, that could damage us, could punish us, and he wants to guard against that. But even that, I think, would be risky. We know that needs to be improved in the team, but I don't think it's for now. Just we've signed these guys too late in the window to have assessed them properly in live game time for them to justify knocking out Scales and Taylor, who have done really well. We know what the issues are, particularly Scales, a really quite excellent defender, just not comfy coming out, and that is the way we want to play and the way we will play, and that will play itself out over the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. I think Taylor's enjoying the competition he's getting from Bailly, and it's spurred him into another level of form there. So it'd be hard to justify taking him out as well. I don't see it. I just see the back four and the goalie being exactly as they are.
Our next game in Europe, Matchday 2, is Dortmund away, a couple of weeks down the track. Do you think if we're Dortmund away this midweek, we might have seen Trusty or Bailly thrown into the mix maybe at the weekend, for example? Do you think the fact that it's Slovan, and with all respect to him and no complacency from Rodgers, as I mentioned, do you think the fact that it's a slightly lesser tie, there's no getting away from the fact that Slovan and Dortmund are on different levels, is that why he's maybe not rushed these guys into the lineup?
I mean, I don't doubt that there's desire from Rodgers to get these guys into lineup. He didn't sign them to bench them, so he wants to get them in. But there's different things. With the international break there with Trusty being away, Bailly's just getting used to the system. Trusty, even more so with being away there. So I think it just is timing. And if it was Dortmund tomorrow night, still the same situation. You've still got guys that maybe aren't just quite ready to break into the team. So it's a bit hypothetical, but no, I think Rodgers probably still stays with what he knows there.
Yeah, and obviously it is hugely hypothetical, but I think he maybe feels, and I think I would probably feel that Scales and Taylor are capable against Slovan. I'm not sure, and I say it with every respect, I'm not sure if they're the guys that would get as a result in Dortmund. And going away to Dortmund is a tough gig for any team. Man City wouldn't fancy going to Dortmund away, for example. It's a tough one for any team in in the professional ranks. But I wonder if, as you say, he signed Trusty and signed Bailly because he feels they're those next level players that we need for those kind of ties.
Yeah, and the situation we have now of them maybe not being ready, we don't have much time to get them ready before Dortmund away. So I could have seen the logic in bringing them in at the weekend there and then getting them time tomorrow night, but it's too soon. But it's going to be too soon again for Dortmund. So we surely have to see them against Falkirk in the League Cup. That's the perfect opportunity. So is that then enough to give them time in the system? We saw a wee bit on Saturday that Engels was great, but the system isn't second nature to him the way it is to Bernardo and Rio Hatate. That just creates that second or two of delay, and then things don't flow as they have been before Engels made his breakthrough into the first 11. So it is a real thing, and it's something we need to be watchful for. But yeah, they've got to be there against Falkirk, and then hopefully keep that going and into Dortmund away. But then Rodgers could still back the guys that have been doing it for him all season so far.
Yeah, there's every chance. And not to look too far ahead, but there's no doubt Brendan Rodgers and his coaching staff will look at the forthcoming fixtures and work out how much game time to give to different players, what would be the opportune minutes to give to new guys and things of that nature. So you're right, we play Falkirk on Sunday. It's a League Cup quarter-final, Sunday afternoon. Then we're away to St Johnstone the next weekend, and then it's Dortmund away. And you would really like to think that between at least the Falkirk and St Johnstone game, we'll see something of Trusty and something of Baye, if we don't see them against Bratislava, of course. And at that point, he can then decide, okay, they've had enough minutes, we've now worked together for a few weeks, I can pitch them in against Dortmund, or I might need to stick with Greg Taylor and Liam Skills. I think ultimately it's the kind of problems, and I use that word in inverted commas, problems that Brendan Rodgers has been seeking. He wants to have these decisions to make. He doesn't want to say, I'm playing Greg Taylor and Liam Skills because they're my only option. He now has choices on the bench or within his squad, and that's got to be a positive. Getting to the midfield, he's certainly got options, James. We've spoken about the fact that I think at this moment in time, there's 5 guys playing for 3 positions in that midfield. Of course, it's Callum McGregor, the captain, Rio Hatate, Paulo Bernardo, and now Arne Engels and Luke McCown. What do you think we're going to see in terms of the 3 that will line up on Wednesday night?
I think we know it's Calmac, but I think it's Engels and Bernardo. For me, Bernardo is a European footballer, and we saw it last season when he wasn't even starting games in the league. He was always there in Europe. Rodgers trusts him in Europe. And this is no slight to Rio Hatate. I'm a huge fan, and you probably lose just that wee bit of flair by bringing Bernardo in over Hatate. But there's not an awful lot in that, but I think Rio just slightly edges that side of things. But I think Rodgers will be looking for a bit less flair with a bit more assuredness and a bit more drive in the tackle that Bernardo definitely gives you. And he can obviously, he's an attack-minded footballer, as we've seen, time and time again from him. And Engels just looks like a European player as well. I just think he's, for his age, he looks so assured, so mature, just very good on the ball, good at finding his man. And that's a big key point for tomorrow night. No stray passes, no losing possession wastefully. And those guys will be, just the boys for that, I think.
I think you, Miff and Paddy are all on the same page there. I think, and you've all put forward the case that Bernardo has been used in Europe by Brendan Rodgers at times last season when he wasn't really getting much of a game domestically. He seems to feel that he's suited to this game, and that might well be the reason he gets the nod. I also think, I'm a huge fan of Bernardo. I think he's a really talented guy, and he's only going to get better. And I also think you cannot be the captain for Portugal's under-21 side unless you've got a real something about you, and obviously a lot of trust from the coaching team over there, whoever takes their 21s. He's already reached a certain level in his young career, and I think that's why he's come to Celtic, because he believes he can get to the next level whilst playing for Celtic. And what happens beyond that for Bernardo, I don't know, but he's obviously had a decision to make in the summer, and he's not come here. I think he only started 11 games last year. I need to double check. Featured in 30 odd, but only started 11. He's not come back for the same second time around. He's not come back to sit on the bench, pick up a decent wage, and feature sporadically. So he's shown in the Rangers game, a couple of weeks ago, and by all accounts, when he came on at the weekend, done well again. He's here to play games of football, and he'll certainly give the manager a decision to make. I think he goes with Rio. I'm a massive Rio Hatate fan. I really think he's a special player, and I don't actually think we're going to see many, if any, changes from the 11 that started against Hearts. So we'll need to see how it plays out. I think in fact, we can all agree it's McGregor and Engels, I think. And I just think it's Hatate that gets a nod over Bernardo. But I guess we'll find out what that be. Kind of 6:15, maybe 6:30, 7:15. The team will come out ahead of the 8 o'clock kickoff. Up top, James, the wingers pick themselves. I think we mentioned the two of them in terms of their pace. It's Daiz Maeda for everything he brings in terms of that defending from the front. And it's Nicholas Kuhn who's had a real lively start to the campaign, isn't it?
I wouldn't touch that. I don't think there's any real challenge to that. It's probably going to be Palmer and Forrest on the bench. Yang seems to have slipped away, so he's got work to do, a bit like Odin Holm, to get himself back into the picture. But yeah, Kuhn and Daiz, they both started the season so well. Kuhn in particular for me, we saw flashes of it last season. We saw there was something there, and then in pre-season, which it's just pre-season, but you saw something really special, and he's taken that right into the season. So I think he's the key man tomorrow night. I think he's going to be heavily involved in everything we do, and he's starting to form a really great understanding with Alistair Johnson, which is always great to see. Your fullback and your wingers linking up well, and Johnson supporting him, very well as well. He's putting a lot of hard yards in, taking a lot of knocks, so that's going to be a key part of the game. And Bratislava will know that, and they'll be working hard on that. But then that does, free up the other side and free up the midfield, and that's what we're seeing this season. We're saying, Kyogo and Ida not kind of putting in as many goals as you would expect from them, but it's creating the space for the midfielders to do that. So if they're going to be busy with Kuhn and Maeda, you're looking for Engels, you're looking for Bernardo and Kalmak, who's scored a fair few this season already, to be filling that gap and taking those shots from outside the box. So that's going to be a key feature.
Yeah, I don't think Brendan Rodgers is worried at all about the lack of goals from his number 9, which it's Kyogo or it's Adam Ida at this moment in time, because we know over Celtic's 6 competitive games this season we've scored 17 times. Had that number been, I don't know, 6, 7 or 8 goals for, you might be a wee bit concerned that it's a bit light, in terms of where the goals are coming from. But they're coming from Callum McGregor and Nicholas Kuhn and Dyson Maeda. Various guys across the side are chipping in with the goals. And we've no doubt that Kyogo will get amongst the goals as and when required. And hopefully Adam Ida will join him in that as well. Ida obviously unlucky to have one chopped off at the weekend against Hearts, but it seems to have been the right call, so no issues there. Do you think it's definitely Kyogo that does start up top for you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I just think it's made for him. It's going to be a fast-paced game, and I think Ida is, massive to bring off the bench in a game like that when you've had a Kyogo running about your ankles for 60 minutes, and then Adam Ida comes on to start bouncing you about the box. That's a huge threat. I've seen a couple of things where people are suggesting that Bratislava are a team that really push to the 90th minute. So even if we get, if we're lucky enough to get a couple of goals ahead, we can't be kind of complacent on that, and bringing Anita on to really upset their back four in a different way, I think that's huge. So yeah, Kyogo for me from the start.
Yeah, I think so. Big players, big occasions. He obviously got his first 2 Champions League goals last season, scored against Atletico Madrid and against Lazio. 2 really good goals as well at Celtic Park. I think Matt O'Reilly assisted them both at the time, and he'll be looking to add to that. Kyogo's not a guy that wants to just rest on his laurels. He'll be looking to kick on to higher heights. In terms of that then, so I think we've loosely agreed, apart from the Bernardo versus Rio Hatate situation, the other 10 seem to pick themselves at this moment in time. But it does leave some decent, very decent quality in the bench. So Luke McCowan, who'll be eager, James Forrest, that we know we can trust to bring something to the party, Baye, Trusty, either one of Bernardo or Rio will obviously be on the bench, depending who starts, and then Palma and Home somewhere thereabouts. You might even see Francis Turley, Stephen Wells, some kind of young academy talent around the side as well. And I think that's it for Brendan Rodgers. We didn't have any great depth at all last season, and when he looked to the bench, he probably shook his head at the lack of options. He's now got genuine options, so that if push comes to shove, depending on how the game's going, say in the 60th minute, he can make some changes, James, without lowering the quality by any noticeable way. And that's where any manager wants to be, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, this is something we've sought to resolve under Ange in his first season. We resolved it and then slipped again, and the strength and depth wasn't there. I don't really see anyone on the bench now that I wouldn't be happy to see starting. If once they had a couple of games under their belt and they were in the flow of things, I think it's a huge testament to the work done in the summer that there's a real step up in quality there. Again, though, I've heard that that's something that Bratislava seriously lack, is strength and depth, so they can start well, but when it comes time for old legs to get replaced, they don't necessarily have that, and I really think we do. There's real quality to bring off there. McCowan is starting to show already, that he's not a Euro squad fella, and I'm glad to see he's shown that. I believe that anyway, but coming on Saturday there and being a bit of a calm head and driving as well and getting his goal from the same move. So I think he's got something to say tomorrow night. I think we'll see him at some point.
Yeah, I hope so as well. I think a lot of fans are enjoying what Luke McCowan's bringing to the party just now. And just to your point there about the options on the bench for Bratislava and do they have anyone to deal with what I think is a very energetic and dynamic Celtic side? I'm not so sure. And when they take off the guys who are 30 plus, they seem to be replacing them with another couple of guys of a similar ilk. Robert Mack, that we mentioned, is 33. Kuka's 37. So I'm not dismissing these guys as players. I know they've been good players over the years, but I wonder if these are the guys that are going to come in and handle everything that Celtic is going to throw at them. And on that note as well, the crowd, James, will have a huge part to play. We know it's become cliche, but cliches are cliches for a reason. Celtic Park on these nights are something else. And when that music goes up, something clicks at Celtic Park, and it's a phenomenal atmosphere for any player to take part in. You'll have seen, we discussed the Inside the Huddle documentary. You've seen it in full. I've seen, most of it now. Brendan Rodgers talks about making Celtic Park, quote unquote, hell for other players, hell for the opposition, but paradise for us. And that's what it's got to be. For a while, it became a bit of a tick box exercise for European footballers. Oh, I went to Celtic Park. It was great. The atmosphere was brilliant. I hammered them 3-0 as well. They were coming away with all the points and all the fun. I think Celtic need to turn Celtic Park into a real cauldron again, make it a really difficult place for teams to come and play. And I think we'll see that tomorrow night. I think the energy will really be there. And you might have seen from the documentary, can't remember exactly what game it was for, but Callum McGregor was saying, give the crowd something to cheer about. 10 minutes, first 10 minutes, give them something early to bring them along on the journey. And I think on that point, you're going to see Celtic start like a train here. I think Celtic will really go for it from an early stage, and that could make for a really exciting night ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's how we look to start every game, but in particular when you've got that noise behind you of Celtic Park on a Champions League night. I totally agree. I think we'll be out the traps flying. The Vice thing is interesting because it gives it a wee bit of not just the atmosphere, but a wee bit of animosity as well, which is healthy in a situation like this. They will be looking to put him in his place because it just was a distinctly unlikable character, and it seems he hasn't shifted that, wherever he's been. So not only will the atmosphere, but you'll just that wee bit of an edge, and I think that's going to help us tomorrow night as well.
Yeah, I think that will go in our favour. As we head towards the end of the piece, James, I'm going to ask you the question in a minute in terms of your scoreline, but in terms of the odds, just looking at what the bookies see, and they rarely get it wrong, to be honest with you. Celtic are 3-1 on, whereas Bratislava are 17-2. So what's that? 8.5-1 in terms of anything there, and it's 92 for the draw. What do you see in terms of an outcome, and what do you see in terms of a scoreline?
Yeah, I would say the odds are based on money laid rather than what bookies actually think is going to happen. They're just protecting their book. But I think Celtic are obviously strong favourites, being at home and being on form and all these things. So I think we'll score early. I think it'll end up 3-1 Celtic. I think we'll lose one. Just they're fast on the break, and I think there's vulnerability there. So they'll get one, we'll get 3.
Celtic's record equal in defence. You think they'll concede?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the same margin of victory, but I think it's going to be 2-0 for Celtic. That's what I'm basing on. I've had a few folks tell me to calm down and stop getting carried away, and you need to rein it in. You rein it in. I'm going the other way. I just think it's there to be enjoyed. Celtic are in good shape, as we've talked about. We've brought in some real quality players. We're in fantastic form. If you can't get excited now, then just chuck it. I think that's the time to look forward to things without, losing your perspective. I just think Celtic, if we've got genuine ambitions, and of course Rodgers, the players and the fans do, I think this is a game where we really need to go and show what we're all about. It'd be easy to say 3, 4, 5, and get carried away in that kind of sense. I don't think it'll be as comfortable, although goals could be important in this new Champions League setup, where 24 teams will qualify for the next stage, and it could be quite tight amongst those teams, between positions 20 and 24, for example, and goal difference could play a part. But the most important thing, first and foremost, get the win, get the 3 points, whatever it takes. But I think Celtic will be overall good value for the win on the night, and I'm going to go 2-0. And I think most of us, all of us, would be happy enough to take that kind of scoreline. James, your final thoughts ahead of Wednesday night, 8 o'clock kickoff, Slovan Bratislava.
It's just why we're football fans, isn't it? Getting to the Champions League. Interesting, having watched that end of season documentary, it was not a given that we were going to be in this Champions League at all. So the fact that, from late January, February on, Rodgers steered this squad to that, and we're there now. And it's the new format, and it's just all very exciting. So I would go to your point earlier on, fans not want to get carried away. That's what being a Celtic fan is all about. Don't get into it half-hearted. I think it could be a big score as well, as much as I think 3-1 is my prediction. If we get off to a fast start and if we get goals on the board early, you could look at a collapse and stuff. So that's potential too. But yeah, can't wait.
Yeah, it's there to be enjoyed, and hopefully we've got another enjoyable night in store at Celtic Park tomorrow night. Thanks to James for joining me here. Thanks as always to everyone who continues to tune in. We'll be back on Thursday with the Final Whistle show, hopefully celebrating another big win at Celtic Park. Until then, enjoy the game and we'll see you soon.